exactly are principled? What are we talking about when we say that a person is a principled person? What does an unprincipled person look like? I'm going to talk about that today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and I'm glad to have you along today, whether on Rumble, on podcast, or on the YouTube. Thank you for joining me. It is Wednesday, the 28th of April of 2021, and I, again, am going to talk about the idea of being principled. And I'm going to start by using a definition. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Here it is, the definition of principle, which is a basic truth, law, or assumption, a rule or standard, especially of good behavior. So that's the definition. You can see it there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take that down now. So here's the thing. A person who is a principled person is a person who operates according to basic truths, laws, or assumptions. You may sort of question the importance or the necessity to do that, but let me help you to understand. When a person is unprincipled, lots of times what they will do is stick their finger up in the air, lick their finger, stick it up in the air, and check to see which direction the wind is blowing before they make a decision on what they're going to do, whether or not the decision that they're making makes sense or doesn't. I use as an example the idea of expanding and packing the Supreme Court, and as another, killing the filibuster in the political sense. These are unprincipled actions, and they're unprincipled because there are certain basic truths. One is that there are people who will try to ram things through using a open system to do so if you don't have something like the filibuster in place. Another is that the filibuster existed long before the Jim Crow era and was not considered a Jim Crow relic until recently by people who wanted to use it and expediently remove the filibuster so that they could jam things through that met their agenda, so that they could make themselves more powerful, basically. The same applies to expanding and packing the Supreme Court. Any president, any Congress, any, whatever it takes to get that done, could have worked toward that end, and one even sort of did. A president did. He failed, and I'm very glad that he did, and I hope, quite frankly, that no future president or current president manages to do that. But the point is, all of these decisions, in my opinion, the opinion to try and expand and pack the Supreme Court, the idea to attempt to kill the filibuster, are unprincipled concepts. You like it or not, people who are principled, you'll get the same thing out of consistently on a lot of things that they do and say. The more principled they are, the more true that is. A principled person works according to basic truths, laws, or assumptions. They work according to rules and standards. And those people will be people out of whom you will get the same sort of behavior consistently. You may not like the behavior you get. It's possible to have bad principles. It's possible to believe bad basic truths, things that really aren't basic truths. Nonetheless, as a rule, when you deal with principled people, you're better off because at least you know what you're gonna get. And when you deal with unprincipled people, you can't say that. I was going to pick on somebody specifically. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say this. When you are unprincipled, it shows. People see it. People know it. It's true. Principled people act in ways that are consistent with their understanding of the way the universe works, in some facet or facets of that universe. They understand that they're these immutable truths that must exist, and they work according to them. They set standards, they make rules, and then they live by them. When you find a person who, for a certain period of time, lives by one rule, and then just suddenly, magically chucks things over and starts to work from a totally different perspective, this is what unprincipled looks like, boys and girls. This is what it looks like. You can't call a person who says, for example, you shouldn't expand and pack the Supreme Court, for years and years and years and years and years, and then suddenly gets into a position where it looks like he's not going to accomplish what he wants if he doesn't do that, and then decides that he wants to pack the Supreme Court, expand and pack the Supreme Court. You can't say that that person is acting in a principled way at that point in time. Whether the person is principled or not is beside the point. That thing that they're doing at that moment in time is not an action of principle, unless you want to tell me that they came to the understanding that they were wrong about things that they believed before, and I don't think that's the case. I think that the immutable truth, the rules, the standards shouldn't be changing for that thing. There's a reason there are 9 people on the Supreme Court, and I'm going to get into that tomorrow along with some other things that I talk about related to courts, particularly higher level courts like appellate courts and the Supreme Court and so forth. Federal courts that are dealing with matters that started as lower state or lower matters. Right? I want to get into that idea tomorrow because it's important. But there's a reason that Supreme Court exists, and there's a reason that it is what it is in terms of its size. It happens to be a pretty darn good size. Right? You may not like what it consists of at the present moment, but that's life. I haven't liked what the Supreme Court consisted of for a very long time. And what happened? We waited our turn. We got to the point where we had the right to appoint judges. The judges went through the appointment process. They got into office, into their positions on the Supreme Court. And now, supposedly, we have a majority of conservative justices on the Supreme Court. I don't really buy that. But the point is, I didn't talk about packing the Supreme Court. I didn't talk about expanding the size of the Supreme Court and then packing it. I didn't talk about that. Which this is the thing, by the way, people miss. You actually have to expand the court in order to pack it. You have to add to the number of justices in order to do that. And that is, in my opinion, an unprincipled activity. We need people, as a rule, but certainly people in authority who are principled, who establish or know about standards and live by them. It's just not that complicated. And when you have people out there who are willing to live in unprincipled ways, it not only shows, but it's obvious because people are hurt by that sort of behavior. Worst of all, you don't know whether somebody's going to be hurt or helped by it, because you don't know how they're going to respond to something that's happening in their little world. A person without principles is somebody who's not going to respond the same way 2 times in a row. That's what's going to happen there. And this is why we cannot have unprincipled people in positions of power particularly, but in general, you don't want unprincipled people around you at all. You want people who are principled. I try very hard to be principled. People get all upset at me because I go the speed limit on the roadway. They get all upset. But as a matter of principle, there are laws and I obey them. I'm not saying I obey every law, but I sure try. And unless a law is something that I cannot in good conscience obey, I'm going to follow it. And this is a matter of principle for me. This is what principle is about. I'm going to say this again. Let me put it up on the screen again even. A principle is a basic truth, a law or assumption, a rule or standard, especially of good behavior. That's what that is. And that's what I would love to see more of in society today. This is what we need. We need people who are going to believe that there are rules and standards. We need people who are going to believe in basic truths and laws and in assumptions. Our ability to send people, as people have said recently, to Mars. Not people. Equipment to Mars. People to the moon, right? Is based on the fact that there were principled people who were making the decisions about those missions. If they had not been principled people who had principles to which they adhered, they would not have succeeded. Now, granted, the principles had to be good. The laws, the rules, or whatever had to be good. That's a true thing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Wednesday, April the 28th of 2021. Tomorrow will be Thursday, the 29th of April of 2021. Thanks again to everybody who's been on the Rumble, on the podcast, YouTube, or wherever. If you're watching me on YouTube, remember that you can like my video. If you're watching me on Rumble, you can give me a positive rumble. Today's subject has been being principled. And tomorrow we're going to talk about lower and higher courts, and that's what I was saying that I was going to discuss tomorrow with regard to the Supreme Courts and others. Hope you're having a good day today. Today is that hump day. It is Wednesday, and I'm glad to have had you along. Hopefully we will see you again on tomorrow's Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Wednesday, April 28th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.